This is the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast.
Wilmer behind the back, spinorama, he scores! What a goal by Jeremy Wilmer!
Discussion.
Into the net with a shot, he scores! Owen Mike goes 4-2, Western Michigan.
Opinion.
Back into the near circle, fires, he scores! Hysteria here in Hockey Valley as Penn State upsets number 2 Minnesota.
Special guests and your listener questions.
The icing is waved and it's over! Western Michigan has won it. The Broncos are the Frozen Four champions of 2025.
Taking you through the world of college hockey, here are your hosts, Adam Roden and Mike McMahon.
Hey, welcome. A special edition of the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast. NCAA tournament brackets announced. Love them, hate them. Here they are. We'll get into all of it in the 4 regions. And so let's get into it. To start out, I mean, as far as, there's obviously no controversy necessarily these days with the way that the NPI is determined and the pairwise in the past. Of course, there's so many little things, but it was actually, I mean, at least to me, probably not to certain other people, funny, I guess, that if you look at the pair, people ask me all year long, what's the difference? And as it turns out, at the end of the day, the only difference, which is big if you're this team, is that UMass would have been in and UConn would have been out. You have to have something, and this is what they have now. But I mean, wouldn't have known this if it just so happens to be the year where it changed. But the reason why that's the case, by the way, if you break it down, is that the pairwise used to be more than just one criteria, right? There was the RPI, which is replaced by the MPI, but it used to be record versus, common opponents and head-to-head. And UMass versus UConn head-to-head would have been overwhelming enough this year for UMass to take over, essentially, the fact that UConn had the better RPI and MPI now. The irony of this is that Mike Cavanaugh said on our show that, and again, we can laugh about this, I suppose, that he wants to see a head-to-head criteria still as part of the criteria. So that would have been actually the thing that kept his team out. So I just, I mean, again, I can laugh about this, but UMass might not be. But that's the way it goes,
Yep. And look, they can. I think that the rule now is they can change things with the NPI year to year, right? Like if the committee decides to change something with the dials, or I guess I don't know about criteria. I don't know if they can add criteria back, but I
mean the dials, quote unquote, which is sort of the terminology we're using, is how they're weighting certain things. Like for example, it's the NPI is made up of 25% your winning percentage and 75% your opponent's NPI. So like. You could tweak, that. You could tweak how much weighting there is to home and away, and to overtimes, and stuff like that. There's also the quality win bonus, which can be tweaked how much that is, Yeah. So those are the kinds of things, and I'm sure they'll play with it over the years. But here we are. But we have a field. We have a 16. We knew what it was last night. The last thing was. Your team, Merrimack, comes through as the first 8 seed in Hockey East to win a championship, and their reward is going out to Sioux Falls to play North Dakota, which is where we can start. So,
yeah, it's funny. Like there's some interesting levels to this too, because they've got North Dakota has Tyler Young, who's been a nice piece for them this year, a nice forward in the bottom 6, who was a former Merrimack forward. He was there a year ago, transferred to North Dakota, kind of late in the summer too. He was in the portal, but I think committed to North Dakota late in the summer. So there's some familiarity there. I'm sure there was some texts going back and forth with them today. And then, of course, the other big story out of that regional is the fact that Quinnipiac and Providence are the other 2 teams that are going out there. So you got 3 Eastern teams that are all going out to Sioux Falls, which, again, I don't think anybody out west is going to be crying about it. I'm not either. I just think it's interesting with all the talk of what will they do, and will they do certain things for Albany? Will they do certain things for Atmosphere? They did the exact same thing that they have always done, which you and I have talked about and have told people, like, you can make all these flips for attendance and flights and everything all you want. Generally, they try to stick to the serpentine order, which is what they did again.
Yeah, no one's crying for Providence Quinnipiac out west. But again, it's not as though the Western schools were being punished. I mean, to them, it kind of sometimes looks that way. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, there haven't been a lot of venues out west. And so, you have a lot of Western teams making it, and then they have to be put somewhere. So a lot of times they have to travel. And, we've talked a zillion times about possible remedies to that situation, such as having more regionals in the Midwest and various ways that can be done. But, again, it was nobody trying to, quote-unquote, screw anybody. It's just the way it is. So now, yes, this is the way the cookie crumbles. The difference between, I think, is that, the committee had options. Let's say in the past, you might have Minnesota, Duluth, and just make up a team. I mean, Western Michigan or whatever. Maybe that's a bad example. Even North Dakota, going to the east somewhere, right, playing in New England. There may not have been a regional in the West that could have, they could have flipped to. Whereas
Sure.
in this case, it seems like it would have been a very easy flip to put Providence and Quinnipiac in Albany while switching Duluth and Penn State to Sioux Falls. But we'll get into that more later. Just talking about this regional first. I mean, Providence, Coach Nate Lehman did talk about it today, how it was kind of funny to him, I mean, that they're going out there. But, I mean, it is what it is. But the interesting thing is that, like, both them and Quinnipiac and North Dakota, for that matter, all lost on the same day. It just so happened that North Dakota's was in the semifinals, but Providence and Quinnipiac in the quarterfinals of their tournaments. But so they all won't have gone 10 days without playing. And as Nate Lehman said, maybe we're going out there. Maybe that's a good thing. We've been a good road team this year. Could you imagine having played Saturday and going to overtime or something and then having to turn around and do that travel? Well, that is what Merrimack is going to have to do, coming off a high of that. I mean, they didn't go to overtime, but still, that's a quick turnaround for them to go out there. And again, No one's crying for them. I mean, they got to go to South Dakota to play North Dakota, and it is what it is,
North Dakota is still directly above South Dakota,
That's right.
as CHN told you about 10 years ago.
That Mike is referencing the greatest April Fool's gag we've ever done. And we haven't done that. That might be the only one we've ever done, but it was very,
I think it's the only one we've ever done.
Very, very tremendous. But yeah, so, Merrimack's going to have to fight through that. But, Quinnipiac and Providence are at least well rested as they get on their flight.
I looked at this today and I said to somebody, I go, if you told me at the beginning of the year, this is how the college hockey season has gone. If you told me at the beginning of the year, Merrimack would make the NCAA tournament, they'd be in a regional with North Dakota, Providence, and Quinnipiac, and they would be the only team that not only won their conference championship, but played in the conference championship game of their conference.
Or even the weekend.
Or even the weekend. That's true. I would have told you were certifiably insane. But, here we are. That's kind of how the year's gone. I have watched a lot of Max Lundgren this year. I know his numbers are, they're very good. He's got a .920 save percentage. He doesn't have the best numbers in the country. But I've watched him. He's played every minute. So I've watched him play a lot. And he is, when he is on, he is nearly unbeatable, as you saw this weekend.
But Jack Parsons has been really good. And, Quinnipiac has had issues in that department. Dylan Silverstein had better numbers than Matai Marinov this year, but Marinov was actually getting more starts. It wasn't until recently that Silverstein started being the guy again, and he played in the quarterfinals against Clarkson. That wasn't his fault, really, that they lost. But and they also are very freshman heavy. Normally I do not count out Quinnipiac in the NCAA tournament. I always think that they're dangerous no matter what happens in the ECAC tournament because we've seen it before. They get knocked out in the ECACs and then do great. I remember 3 years ago, Merrimack and Quinnipiac played each other in the first round that year. A lot of people picked Merrimack in that game. Yeah. Because Merrimack was hot and Quinnipiac was knocked out. And you're like, wow, no, this is a great upset opportunity. And Quinnipiac beat them 5-0 and went on to win the national championship. So, that was a lesson for us all. But, this team is so reliant on other freshmen scoring. And the goaltending hasn't been great. So I think this is still kind of a retool year for Quinnipiac. and I don't know if they're ready. If I'm going to pick someone to come out of this, I mean, I know all North Dakota fans hate me already, so I'm picking Providence.
Yeah, I thought Providence, I mean, look, shocker. I mean, they won the league by 11 points. I thought they were the deepest and best team in hockey East, just wire to wire over the course of the year. Everybody else had ups and downs. I mean, UMass is very good. Merrimack won the league title. They were very good. But both of those teams had, bad first halves and good second halves. UConn and BC really struggled down the stretch. Providence had some hiccups, but I mean, really, wire to wire were the best team start to finish. And there's really nobody on this roster that wows you. I mean, they don't even have a player on their team that is a point per game average.
Right.
John Mustard is the leading point scorer. He's got 28 points. It's really been built just through hard hockey. It's really hard to play against them, and it's really hard to score on Jack Parsons in the second half of the year. That's kind of been the story.
There is something to that. I mean, you don't want like 3 weeks off, but 10 days isn't terrible. So, and look, I mean, North Dakota has done a great job. Dane Jack. I mean, a year ago at this time, we were talking about how Brad Berry was getting fired and how it was like, is this the right thing to do? And, Dane Jackson comes in and does a tremendous job. They're the number 2 seed overall. They lost players like Jaden Perron and Sasha Boisvert, but they pulled back in players. And Will Zellers is traditional freshman, so to speak, has done a great job. And they have some veterans on that team. And Jan Spoonar has been great in net. Maybe not great. I mean, he has ups and downs. He has been great at times. But freshman goalie there. So, we'll see how he does. But hasn't always been great. But, and Cole Reshney and Keaton Verhoff got a lot of press for being major junior guys that came in. They've been good, but it was really, like I said, some other guys like Zellers as a freshman who stepped up. So, we'll see, but I mean, I can't go straight chalk. You got to go off the grain a little bit here and there. So I'm going to pick, I'm going to pick Providence to go through instead of North Dakota. But go on to the Worcester Regional here, where Michigan State is playing UConn, Dartmouth versus Wisconsin. Of course, had to hear once again people coming out of the woodwork talking about how overrated Dartmouth is. So now they get a 2 seed against Wisconsin. But I mean, how overrated or underrated is Wisconsin? I mean, what have they done, honestly? In the last, they haven't won an NCAA tournament game since 2010, and coming off a 7-1 loss to Ohio State, Dartmouth wins the ECAC tournament championship for the first time ever, first time in the NCAAs in 46 years. I think people would be silly to look past Dartmouth. It's not to say that Wisconsin isn't going to win the game. I just, always can't stand the overrated nonsense. Again, would it be the biggest shock in the world? Dartmouth got through? No. I mean, I'm going to pick Michigan State to go to the Frozen Four finally. And there's a team who, maybe having that rest will help them because, as we just talked about, also a 10-day layoff, right? Last couple years, they won the Big Ten tournament championship and then go into the regionals and didn't get through.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I mean, I have a hard time thinking anyone is overrated at this point. Or I guess, like all the debate on, well, is Dartmouth really this good? And all this debate that goes back and forth at this time of year when brackets are revealed and who's a 2 and who's a 3 and this team stinks. And this is why I'm glad, as much as there may be some minor flaws, that there is a pairwise or an MPI now where you don't, because you see so many different opinions. Can you imagine a room with 10 people in it arguing back and forth about where these teams belong? Like at least there's just something objective where everyone is compared through the same lens, and whatever they are 2 seed, 1 seed, make the tournament, don't make the tournament. I would so much rather this system than just the constant debate. I think back to the COVID year, so many, some of it seemed absolutely ridiculous. But it happened, and they didn't have any other choice that year. But do you really want that every year? No. People may debate whether or not Dartmouth is a good 2 seed, but they are a 2 seed. That's what they were compared to, using the same criteria as everybody else. That's what they are.
You are 100% right. I'm older than you, so I've been saying this for longer. But the alternative is so much worse. We could nitpick the flaws in math, and math is not perfect. But again, that is why I always say when it comes to placement that, the committee, sure, take some leeway if you don't think, that if the math isn't perfect. Let's, feel free to tinker around for attendance. It's not that big a deal. But when it comes to picking the teams, I mean, you got to have a standard or else it's chaos. So, but Michigan State, I mean, they have 2 Hobie finalists. They have Charlie Stramel, Trey Augustine in net, the only goalie who was picked, a junior now. I mean, we all know how good he is. I mean, I think that's really, Muslik's been good for UConn, but Trey Augustine's hard to say he's not the best goalie in the regional. Michigan State for most of the year was just seemingly just really tough again and seemed to have it all clicking. I mean, Porter Martone has been tremendous as a freshman who comes in, but lately they've had a couple blips. But I mean, I don't know if that's really anything to worry about. Like I said, I think they're going to be fired up and ready to go. UConn might run into a little bit of a buzzsaw, but would you be completely shocked if UConn put it together for that game? I don't know. Got to pick somebody though.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I think that's a really good UConn team. I mean, you could argue they should have won the game last night. I mean, I think their expected goals on our site was over 5.
Yeah, they lost 2-1.
Yeah. I do think Michigan State's the best team in this region. I think there's some good goaltenders here, but I think they probably have the best one. Although it's close, I don't think it's far and away. I think it's close. The one thing though is I just think Michigan State has the most depth, you get these teams. We've seen these runs before with certain teams where it gets to a point where it kind of feels like it's their time. They've been close before. It's at least their time to make a Frozen Four. Is it their time to win a national championship? I don't know, but it does feel like it's Michigan State's time to at least make a Frozen Four.
All right, let's go on to the Loveland Regional where I will be. And as I think we talked about this last week in terms of, would the committee have the gumption to switch Western Michigan out? I mean, I personally don't like the fact that second round matchups may happen against teams that just played each other in the conference playoffs, but here we are. I mean, the committee hasn't worried about that in 23 years, so I wasn't expecting it to switch now. I just said I would like that to be the case. But here we are. Western is the 4 overall. Denver is the 5 overall. And Western was just out here in Denver playing the semifinals. That went to overtime, of course. Now they're back. So Minnesota State, though, it's interesting that they sneak up to a 13 overall seed after Merrimack's win because that is a rematch of last year's first round. Minnesota State took Western to overtime last year, if you recall, in the first round. And Western never would have won a national championship. So those two get to play each other again. And I did this in my notes story that I just published on College Hockey News a while ago. But check out the teams in this region. Western has made the NCAAs all 5 years now that Pat Furchwell has been head coach. Denver has made it 17 of the last 18 times. The only time they missed was that weird COVID year. Okay, when it was all opinion.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, and they've won 3 national championships in that span. Minnesota State has gone to 10 of the last 13 NCAAs, including a couple of Frozen Fours under Mike Hastings. And Cornell has made it 7 of the last 8 years as well. The only one they missed was 2022, the year after they returned from not having played the year before because of COVID. So, I mean, these are 4 teams that have and not only that, like I said, Western has played Denver a lot. That Western has played Minnesota State. Cornell and Denver have played 2 of the last 3 NCAA tournaments. Cornell beat Denver in 2023 in the first round and then lost to Denver in the regional final in 2024 2-1. People have said to me, though, is the altitude a thing? All these other schools come in there. Does Denver have an unfair advantage? The thing is, you would think yes, because, look, I live out here, and I can. Look, I'm not a world-class athlete. I mean, go figure. But, I mean, it's no joke. You have to make sure you stay pretty hydrated all the time. But I've never heard a coach complain or mention it in all the time, out here. So I don't know if they must be on their mind from a nutrition standpoint, but they don't really talk about it much or worry about it that much. I will say drink a lot of water. That's all I can tell you. But
my guess is it was probably a bigger deal 15 years ago. Every school now, even the small ones, have strength and conditioning coaches and nutritionists and everything else. Where I'm just sure they prepare for it better now than they did before.
Yeah.
You think about 2005, people, you knew the altitude was there, but there wasn't nearly as much information on how to deal with it as there is now.
And look, Denver's out here sort of on an island, and so usually in the past, anytime they played the NCAA tournament, they'd have to go east somewhere east of Denver. It only started in 2022 that Loveland was hosting, and so here they are again, and they get to be here. So they're not going to, cry for anybody else, obviously. And like I said, I don't expect any of those teams to say anything. And look, Western just came out here and lost in overtime. Minnesota Duluth just came out here and lost in double overtime. So I don't think anyone's blaming it on the altitude. Anyway, that being said, Denver just continues to find a way. They get here, NCAA champs. Johnny Hicks has been absurd. First, I put on Twitter that Denver went up 3-0, and I said, well, just so you know, he's never allowed more than 2 goals. And then, lo and behold, Minnesota Duluth tied the game and made it 3-3, and then everyone in Denver hated me for that jinx. But they did pull it out in double overtime on a goal by Christian Epperson, just another freshman who they're bringing along with 11 goals. And I'm going to say that I like Denver to get out of here. Again, we are splitting hairs because, them and Western, and like I said, the other 2 teams have also beaten these 2 or close in NCAA tournaments. So who knows? But just, the way Denver's playing, it's all coming together for them again. I will say this one thing, which I haven't necessarily verified, but Eric Polkamp, as I've touted all years, Hobie favorite, he took a shot off the foot against Western Michigan late in that game, blocking a couple shots. It was just ridiculous the way he played in that game. But he didn't appear to be skating as well for the rest of that game for sure. But then you figured, week break, if it was just a bruise, he'd be fine. I was watching him closely on Saturday against Duluth. He still appeared a little off to me. It's very possible I'm making that up, but I don't think so, which lends me to believe there's something still going on there. But at the end of the day, he had 7 shots on net and played 31 minutes. So, I guess it wasn't that bad. I don't know, but
yeah. If there's anything going on, it's playing 31 minutes.
He seemed a little off. I know that they've been trying to get him to commit more to defense and not worry as much about the offense, which, he's still the team's leading scorer, but he hasn't scored as much lately. But like I said, he had 7 shots. He seemed to be hanging back a little bit more timid. He took a couple penalties early on that, he wouldn't normally take. So I don't know. I may be making it up. But the bottom line is he played 31 minutes. So I guess I should shut up about it. But I do think it's something to keep an eye on because,
if he can play, 85% of Eric Polkamp is better than 100% of most other players.
But, he brought a dynamic. He brings a dynamic that's just kind of no one else has, I don't think. That combination of the skill and the toughness, hitting that – if you're not able to push off as well, necessarily, that you might not have that extra jump or that extra strength, you know what I mean? So, yeah, look, he was fine. He did fine. It's just something to keep an eye on. There's a difference between being a good player and being a Hobie finalist. You know what I mean? So that's the Polkamp I'm used to seeing. But we'll see. But he's playing, and I'm picking Denver here anyway, just because I think they're figuring it out, and they have been for a few weeks, and they always figure it out. You could say the same thing for Western Michigan though, so it's very possible they'll get through. I think as far as Cornell, because I watch them a lot, they've won a first round game the last 3 years, heartbreakers each time to go to the Frozen Four. Casey Jones has them right back here. It's 3C, which is better than even last year. Look, they're a very talented team. I think they're more talented than they've been actually the last couple of years. They brought in a great freshman class, some transfers that have been tremendous. Alexei Cornway and net. There's something a little different about them. They don't seem to have it together as much at times. Consistently. Let's just say, flubbing passes or just not seeming to be connected, support, that kind of stuff. I'm not X's and O's guy, but I can kind of see some of these things. And Casey even talked about it after losing to Princeton in the semifinals this past weekend. So it's the kind of things that would worry me. But if they flip a switch and listen to their coach, they are a dangerous team. So I do think Denver has got it all going on right now, so it's going to be a tough battle for Cornell. But that's my breakdown here. I'm going to pick Denver. Sorry to come out of this.
Yeah, I don't like that Western Michigan and Denver in the same regional. Not because I want them to split them up. Although, I mean, that's a valid argument. If we want to get into that debate, it's a different argument. I think than should they is a different conversation than will they. Obviously, they didn't. But I'm saying I don't like them together because I don't want to. I would like to pick them both because I feel like they're both good enough to go to the Frozen Four. I, though, have kind of made it a habit at this time of year that I'm not going to pick against Denver in March or April. I have a hard time doing that because more often than not, they have success in March and April. So I agree with you. I'm going to go Denver. But I mean, would it surprise anybody if that regional final, assuming it is them and they both get through their first round games, goes 3 overtimes? Like that could be the game of the regional weekend if they were to see each other, if they get past Minnesota State and Cornell, which is an if, because Minnesota State has beaten good teams all year. When Alex Tracy is on, he's really hard to beat. In Cornell, Cornell is another one, like just has consistently been top 10, top 12 in the NPI for most of the season. So it's not like either of these teams has snuck up on anyone or anything like that. They kind of both have just been consistently good all year.
Absolutely. So it should be fun. I'll be there in Loveland this weekend. Last but not least for this segment, before we get to Paul Caponegri to talk all about the Big Ten teams, the Albany Regional, which is Michigan versus Bentley, and then Duluth versus Penn State. We're going to talk about this in our second segment as well, but they really went the extra mile to put Gavin McKenna on in prime time. ESPN scheduling that game in Albany for 9 p.m. Eastern time, which is really kind of nonsensical, honestly, with Denver playing at 4 p.m. local time in Loveland on Friday, and then Penn State, Duluth, 9 p.m. in Albany. You want to get Gavin McKenna in primetime, okay, because, look, we've been sort of rolling our eyes at all the hype all year, which has driven us all crazy. But, okay, if you want to do that, I get it, but does it have to be at 9 o'clock Eastern time? So I don't understand.
But I don't understand why they're putting their number one crew in Loveland. Colby Cohen and John Cross in Loveland. And if you look at the schedule, they now have an ESPNU and an ESPN Plus game. So the number one crew is going to have a game that's on streaming, not even on one of the networks. But the only thing here, though, is that had been announced for weeks, or not announced necessarily, but I think John had put something on Twitter that him and Colby were going to Loveland weeks ago. So you would think, I don't know. I mean, obviously they've never done this before either, but could the NCAA have tried to make sure that maybe their games were not going to be in the middle of the afternoon when you have your arguably your A crew, if that's what you want to call it? I mean, they get, I think their crew gets the most cameras and gets kind of the most production and everything. And you're putting them at 2 and 4 or 2 and 6 Eastern. One of the games is going to be on ESPN Plus, not even on one of the networks. Like it just, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But I don't know that it was ESPN. I mean, like you said, I think ESPN wants Gavin McKenna on one of the networks. That I understand from a they're looking at it from a television standpoint. It's kind of weird to me that that's what the A crew and look, they could end up with again an unbelievable regional final if they get Western and Denver. We'll see what happens. But I hate playing games in the middle of the day on a weekday. I hate that Worcester is going to be playing at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Like people can play about attendance, and it's like, well, stop playing games at 1:30 on a Thursday. Like, what are you doing?
I know we're gonna ride that soapbox hard in our second segment. So
I'm getting ahead of myself, but
I know it's hard not to go off on these things. But look, it all should be a balance. It's the same thing I say about attendance concerns. Do you want to go crazy turning things around for attendance? No, but there's a balance. It doesn't have to be rigid either. Same goes for TV. I get ESPN wanting to do certain things. I totally accept it. But it should not be to the extreme of hurting the thing in general, the so-called integrity of things that everyone seems to care about. So there has to be a balance to all these factors. And, if they make honest attempts at balance, I'll be the first to defend them, even if things are nitpicked. But when it's that extreme, it seems weird. But anyway, I don't see anyone but Michigan coming out of this regional. Poor Bentley here. I mean, I know we said that last year. They gave Boston College a great go at it, which was tremendous. And Bentley really is, they turned over a lot of players and did a tremendous job. Andy Jones is a fantastic coach. But I see this more like when Michigan did to Colgate a couple years ago than I do Bentley versus BC last year. I worry it could get ugly. Michigan is just clicking on all cylinders. They're scoring goals like bananas. They outscored their opponents 18-6 in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, they just steamrolled through the Big Ten tournament. And, where's the flaw in Michigan right now? There is none. And the biggest thing you could always point to in the past was two things: their goaltending and their discipline. And both of those have been solved. So I don't know what's wrong.
No, I completely agree. They are the scariest team in the tournament, in my opinion, just in terms of the firepower they have, but also, like you said, the fact that they are better defensively. They do have a better goaltender. Like there just are things about their game that stands out where I just think they're going to be really hard to beat. I think they're going to be really hard to beat. So I would take Michigan here as well. I know that, again, is somewhat boring, taking the top seed, but it's true. I mean, we're giving you, our real thoughts here. That's what I think is going to happen.
And, the other game is tremendous. I mean, we're overlooking it because we're looking past like what Michigan's going to do. But Duluth versus Penn State in and of itself is a great game. I mean, talking about contrast and styles, and, you got a coach in Scott Sandlin who's not his first rodeo, and certainly Penn State has done a great job last year getting to the Frozen Four, but this year they've been kind of up and down. Relatively speaking, I mean, they're still 9th overall. But, the question for me on, you got Max Plant against Gavin McKenna as the two Hopi finalists in there. And I just think that, I've watched Duluth enough, I've watched Penn State enough that the way that Penn State sometimes does not play defense, I mean, I feel like Duluth might be licking its chops. Penn State has shown the ability in the past to adapt, so that is certainly possible. And Guy Godowski knows what he's doing. So, the Plant brothers, man, they are tough. I mean, Denver did a great job keeping them at bay, but Duluth also. Here's another thing: Penn State takes the most penalty minutes of any team in the country. Duluth's power play is near 30%, and that's not necessarily just the Plant brothers. They had 2 power play goals against Denver that were their second unit.
I have a hard time. I agree with you. I think Duluth gets through that first game as well. It's just they're just such a well-balanced team. They play well defensively. They're going to be heavier and harder to play against, which I think is going to pose some problems for Penn State. We'll see. I've been wrong plenty of times, but that's kind of what it feels like.
As have I.
Class, today we're talking men's ice hockey. Open your textbooks. Join thousands of other screaming fans for an in-person experience you have to see to believe. It's the NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Las Vegas. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4.
How many teams are in the Men's Frozen Four?
Please leave.
All right, let's bring in Paul Caponegri, former forward for the Ohio State Buckeyes and current Big Ten network analyst. Sir, how are you?
Good. Other than I'm a little distraught right now.
I was just going to say.
I'm not. I don't know if I'm getting more. I'm a Chicago guy, and I get my Chicago sports. But when the Lady Buckeyes lose to Wisconsin and tough games, that just I got rattled last year. That whole penalty shot thing. And then they tried to just get one now, and I'm like, and they probably didn't deserve it, but I was just thinking justice would be served if they got a penalty shot here. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a little ill-advised this time around or not, but.
Well, if they had the timeout, I would have said do it. But without the timeout, the odds weren't great because you couldn't tell for sure. Anyway, I just hated last year so much because I thought it was kind of a bogus call, but obviously I'm biased. So
yeah. Well, Ohio State's won enough, and so has Wisconsin for that matter. So
yeah, and women's hockey's in a good place other than the parity.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a few more teams in there. That
hopefully it'll get there. Like Penn State's kind of slowly built up, but
yeah. Well, what about Michigan and Michigan State getting teams? That would help.
I mean, I don't know what.
Yeah,
they should.
I know.
I mean, Ohio State's benefited from that. They've got a lot of Michigan grown girls, and even Wisconsin has. So there's a lot. I mean, just living here, there's a lot of young ladies playing hockey now.
Yeah.
In Illinois, so I think the quality of player now, they could use some more teams too. Maybe.
Yeah.
So aside from those two.
Out here in Colorado, I've been trying to get my 9-year-old to skate. She can skate around okay. She skis pretty good, but doesn't have the tenacity for hockey yet. So we'll see if I can build her up. We'll see.
Yeah, slowly but surely, right?
All right, well, let's talk about the men's side and the Big Ten teams specifically that are involved. Michigan is, of course, the number 1 overall seed in the Albany Regional. Michigan State 3 overall in the Worcester Regional. You've got Penn State in the Albany Regional as well. And who am I leave? Oh, Wisconsin.
So you have two. They're in 2 and they're not in 2. They have 2 teams in 2 brackets, which I don't know. I mean, I guess it maybe makes it a better chance that you're going to get a team, but also you can only get 2 now or whatever. But
well, let's go one by one just to whip through it. I mean, quickly with Wisconsin, because you just said how much you hate them right now, but no, they've been
outside only.
Yeah. No, they've been weird. Obviously, they come off that 7-1 loss to Ohio State, so I don't know really. I thought they were getting it together, and then all of a sudden that happened. So, where do we look at them right now?
That's a good question. The week before they had swept Penn State on the road. They seem to be a better road team. Which I got, every game in the NCAA tournament's a road game. I think, they've had some pretty rough injuries. They will have Adam Hauser in goal. He's a freshman. He's played well, but he's a freshman. Kind of the peaks and valleys.
Small too. I mean, 5'10". Yeah. So, I mean, no offense to the small guys. I'm 5'10", so, whatever. But
sure. But it's goalie, right?
These days.
Size helps a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Quinn Finley's had a good season, but he did not do better this year after a really good sophomore year. They have a little more depth up front. Like last year, they relied on one line a lot. This year, they've got, spread out. And then they lost Logan Hensler, which was a big loss on defense. But, Luke Osborne's been a really nice young player. And then they had Ben Dexheimer, who's an all Big Ten guy. You've seen the good game and you've seen the bad game. So we'll see. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's an interesting matchup with Dartmouth because all I ever hear, of course, every year is that the ECAC is overrated. So it's going to be interesting to find out. I think, as an old ECAC guy myself, I think they've proven enough over the years that if you start calling them overrated, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening. So I hope Wisconsin doesn't look at it that way.
I don't think they'll look at it that way. I honestly, a day ago, they're just happy to get in, right?
Yeah.
And so I think today you're looking at where are we going, who we playing, let's go. I think that, Mike Hastings, the guy I played for 3 years in junior,
right?
That's got to be his mentality. He's pretty good at that kind of stuff. So I imagine that's going to be a thing. I don't know what kind of crowd we'll have out there. Those are early games, 1:30 and 5 in Worcester. I'm not overly excited. There's a 9 Eastern game, on Friday night either. Because this is going to make for long days in the studio. I'm not complaining.
I know.
It's a ton of fun, but at the end of the day, you're getting a little, worn down by it. But Wisconsin we don't know. I watched both Dartmouth games this weekend. I like their pace. I was almost hoping Penn State Dartmouth because that would be a really fun game with some offense. And, Dartmouth seems like they could play both ways though, because they had to play defensively in a tight game with Princeton. I thought their goalie played really well. He's very aggressive.
Yeah, he is. He came out of that quite, It was interesting because actually both of those teams on Friday played much more up and down games. I thought maybe they were just a little gassed on Saturday because they had just played like totally opposite games, and then all of a sudden they play each other, and it was like a battle. But
Right. And then, but you're also playing for something that they both have not, really done much. So you're a little more tight. You don't want to make that big mistake. And then Stavroff, I mean, that guy can shoot it.
He can shoot it, See if he gets the room against Wisconsin. But, well, let's get to Michigan State. Obviously, sure. Trey Augustine, 3-time Richter finalist, basically. What more can you say? I mean, all year they looked like the team. Of course, the last 2 years they came close. They had great regular seasons, lost in the regionals. Was this year going to be the year, another tremendous year? But then lately a couple speed bumps, but I don't know what to really – maybe it helps them, because the last 2 years they win the Big Ten tournament and then they lose in the regional. So you never know how these things will go.
They've won the league. They've won the regular season in the league, the playoff twice. So, I think in your mind, yes, of course you want to win every game, but most of those guys that have been there see this as the goal this year. So I'm not saying they weren't trying, but I don't think it's a horrible thing that they didn't win and that they maybe had a week off. I mean, they practice hard. Like Adam Nightingale's a go guy. Maybe this helped them maybe get a little more juice for this regional. I do like the regional for them, quite frankly. Yeah. A team like Cornell would give them problems, obviously, I think, like they did last year. Mankato State, I think. Connecticut's a tight checking team too, but Michigan State can play that type of game. And then obviously you got Trey and net.
I want to make sure I get to a guy like Martone, who, a lot of good freshmen out there, a lot of big major junior imports. We'll get to another one of them in just a second. But, Martone, I just sort of have a bias, I guess, towards guys who play his style. And, sure. I was always a big Eric Lindros fan and that kind of power forward and Fantilli, for example, over Logan Cooley that year. And so, and he's got 70 penalty minutes, so I guess that kind of goes along with it. But,
sure.
But he's been tremendous. I mean, he's leading the team in scoring. He's a plus 27. I think he's, like I said, we'll compare him to the other guy in a second, but talk about Martone.
Well, I guess the only thing that I would worry about in a one-game sample is those penalties. He plays really aggressively. Who are they going to have? Maybe NCHC referees, I guess, maybe is a good chance.
Right.
Are they going to let him play? Because he does toe that line a lot. He looks, he's an NHL player.
Yeah.
He's going to go to the NHL and he's going to play that way and it's going to be fine. College, it can kind of go either way in those games. And it did all year. Sometimes it was let go, but he can play anyway, right? He can play that physical game, but he can also skill it up. And him and Stramel and Russell, he just popped in onto that line. The Hobie Baker winner leaves and he goes in and they looked really good together. And then playing for Adam Nightingale, I think he's got a good track record of developing players.
Not the same player as Fantilli. Fantilli has a great shot.
Right.
And he could do a lot of those. Martone's more his
a little
goals,
more skill in open ice.
Yeah, Martone. A lot of Martone's goals come around the net, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Absolutely.
We talk about Gavin McKenna so much, and I think as I tweeted out today, it's not because I don't like him, the team, or anything else. And people, I hope, don't misunderstand that. It's just so much hype that I don't think. It just drives people crazy, I think, because there are so many other good players out there, and Martone is one of them. And again, he was a year younger, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that it took him longer physically, right? And I thought the second half of the year he was much better at.
And the points show out, the production is doubled.
Because 5-on-5, he really struggled. Let's be honest. I know Guy Godowski will always sort of poo-poo that, but first half of the year, I thought he really struggled 5-on-5.
Yeah, of course, Guy's going to protect his players.
Yeah, of course, and I'm not blaming him for that. I'm just saying, hopefully don't get mad at me for pointing that out.
Sure.
But like I said, I thought he was really much better. But I do think when it's still at the end of the day, when it comes down to a guy like him versus Martone, is that he's still lacking a bit defensively, and they don't necessarily ask him to play that way. So it's not, again, maybe another coach it would be different, right? But So anyway, the point is, great year, but let's not anoint him the king of college hockey yet. So I think Penn State's going to have some struggles playing against a team like Duluth, which is a big, heavy team, and they have their own stars.
Right. Like I said, from a Big Ten perspective, the Penn State Dartmouth, I thought would have been a better matchup in terms of the skill kind of game they want to play. I said it all year, I've watched McKenna obviously from game one to now. And, everyone's not writing him off at first, right? Like, oh, he's not, he's going to be the 5th pick, maybe, Yeah. And I'm like, let's wait till February. Wait till after he goes to World Juniors and he comes back, and he was a different player after Christmas. He figured out the game. I thought he started skating more. Like he gets in the habit. He gets in like the Patrick Kane habit, right? Of slowing it down too many times.
Yeah, exactly.
It
almost looks like he's not competing, and it's not. It's just the way he's playing. But
he's smart. He's smart. He's thinking a step and a half ahead. Right. One thing I will say is he shoots the puck though a lot, which he's a pass first guy, but he had 16 shots against Ivan Kovic a couple weekends ago in a series. So he's shot the puck more. Like Catcher Kane was his thing, was he wouldn't shoot early on in his career, and then he started. But, it's important for his teammates to help him too, I think. And, he makes a lot of great passes, but he can't score all the goals for those passes. Aiden Fink started to score more. Those two have played all year. But the McKenna thing is he's nothing he can do about it if they're going to give him attention, right?
Right.
It's really hard. I can't imagine being 17 and having all this pressure on you. And, he comes from a really small town, and then he's getting all these, he's getting ESPN to come after him and everything.
Well, again, the comparisons to like Celebrini and Fantilli being 17, they were unfair because those guys were just bigger, like they were just more physically ready. And so, like when I would say things early in the year comparing it to those two guys, it wasn't that I was saying it was his fault. I was more blaming the people who were like, "Oh my God, he's going to come in and score 100 points!" Like, I'm like, "Come on, like slow down, right?"
Right.
So it did take time. He wasn't going to be Celebrini or Fantilli right away, but I mean that doesn't mean he's not a good. He's tremendous, right? So
I think he's just physically behind those guys a little. Yeah. There's not. I mean, everybody's different. Like not everyone comes in. Adam Fantilli's 6'2", 200 pounds, and and like Martone, physically mature already. I think McKenna's the good thing about him is he's got room to grow in his body and become a grown man. He's just barely 18 years old. I would honestly, and I know it's 99% not going to happen, I would recommend him not to play another year because it would only, I think he's going to do well in pro one way or another. Maybe his star level, who knows, but he'd be better if he played another year and got like a full year, a summer of training, and then did it again. And then he's 19. He's still only 19 when he would make his debut a year from now. So it's like
preaching to the converted on that, man.
Look, man, I was a 21-year-old freshman, man. So I cannot put myself in any of these guys' shoes that they're that good at that age.
If he was in college hockey next year, he would absolutely be the Hobie favorite. This year, I'm not putting him at that top 3 level.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
No, he came on late, I think, too.
Yeah.
Also, I did his games when he got 10 points, and now that's an incredible, incredible weekend, but that's a fifth of his points in one weekend, which is insane.
And especially early on, most of it was power play points. Again, that's not saying that to like kill the kid. It's just fact of life. But he is going to be playing, Max Plant, who is in the legit top 3. So we'll see how that goes.
And look what those guys did. Those two Plant boys, there were a lot of expectations for them last year. And they had okay seasons. But look what their jump was from year 1 to year 2. Like, they're dominant players.
Yeah, I think one or not both were hurt at points last year, too. So
So, there's variables. And year 1 to year 2, a lot of times, is the big jump.
But look, I would not put it past Penn State to make a roll there. I do think Duluth has the grizzled experience there, but we'll see. I would not put it past them.
They don't want a 2-1 game. They want it to be like 5-4 game or something. They want it to get up. Penn State, that's what they try to do. They want to get going, and Jackson Smith is another guy that should be talked about. Like,
he gets overlooked.
I've heard rumors that he's already told people, or I've heard that he's coming back, and that would be really good stuff for Penn State and college hockey.
That would be another Hobie candidate next year, like the way that my boy Polkamp is as an offensive defenseman this year. So, but let's get to the last but not least, which is Michigan.
Definitely not the least.
And, the knock on Michigan, as you know, the last few years when they made the Frozen Fours, and, part of it was goaltending, but also the discipline factor. And everyone I've talked to this year points out that they believe Brandon Naurato has done his best job, as a young coach, learning himself, how to be better, and also just getting the guys to buy in discipline-wise. I was impressed at those Michigan State games, which can get pretty heated, where there was no penalty minutes in one of the games, which is I would have lost a lot of money on that. It's you take the over on whatever penalty minutes they would have thought, because especially the first 10 minutes, there's usually some misconducts or something. But you got to give Brandon a lot of credit, and the players. The players can hear he can say it all he wants, right, but the players are the ones that got to go out there and do it. And you mentioned the goaltending. I think for me that is what separates them now. They haven't had a goalie like this since Del Montoya. And no disrespect to Eric Portillo or any of those guys, no. But they weren't guys that whatever the reason they would win a game. Whereas Jack Ivankovic has the ability to be a guy that maybe even not steals a game, but steals a period when they're not playing well. He'll make 3-4 really great saves that maybe those other guys wouldn't have, and changes a hockey game and can demoralize the team knowing that offense is going to come. Right, exactly. And it's a huge difference. And of course, they're also really balanced, and they did a great job sort of recuperating off of last year's down year, which kind of, a lot of injuries and stuff. And, they didn't go into the Martone and McKenna pool, right? They just kind of. Maybe not. Maybe they tried. I know. They tried. Who knows? They definitely tried to some extent, but they didn't go out of their way to do it. Not to. But they picked and choose their spots, and they got they made sure the team. They got a Ben Robertson from Cornell, which doesn't make my friends Becky's very happy. Right. But still, they picked and choose their spots, and I think they built a team here that is top to bottom. And I get anything can happen in the NCAA tournament, but they are. I don't know. It's saying. This may be saying a lot. This may come back to bite me, but I feel like they're set up team-wise better than they even were when they had all those superstars in first rounders. The top four, the top Hughes and Johnson, from the draft. All those Johnson, guys. Power, yeah. Just feels like a better top to bottom team. Not that those teams were bad, believe me, but. No, and they lost a guy, Henry Muse, in the first month of the season. That would have been their power play quarterback. He was a OHL guy or CHL guy that came. Yeah, look, they've got it going. They've got it kind of all the elements. Well, when you say top to bottom, that includes the goalie. So I just can't reiterate enough. So I hope he doesn't give up 5 on me. I'm talking so well about him, but he doesn't play like Trey. But his mindset and how cool and calm as a young freshman reminds me of Trey that way, and I'll probably bring that up all weekend during the 4-day marathon in the studio. But I think he could be the difference for him. But these guys getting a guy like Hage and Horkoff to stay for their second year, and how they've gotten better. And then Hughes, is a senior, which you cannot say enough about having a senior on your team who's a Hobie finalist. And Jaden Perron comes in as a transfer. It's it's almost the way Western Michigan has done it. Just piece it together into a team. Right, and they get a little older that way. Yeah. Hughes staying. Hughes was quite. We had him on this week on our show for the awards, and man, he just gets it. He's just a smart kid. Team first, and he's like, I wish I could stay. Yeah, he loves it there, and it's just refreshing to hear that more, because there's so many guys that are just ready to move on. And I think there was a little bit of a time where Horkoff and Hage and a few of these guys that for couple weeks did struggle a little bit, and I think Brandon had to kind of reel them back in, say, hey, it'll be there in a month or whatever. Let's do this. You'll remember this forever.
And I hope more players talk to guys that left already.
I know.
Go talk to Ken Johnson right now, who's, he's in the NHL, but he's struggling a little bit, and ask him what he thinks about that kind of stuff. I think that those are like your best resources.
I appreciate it, man. Hey, we'll see you. Man. Where are you going to be?
I'll be in Bristol for all of it.
Oh, that's just in the studio. Okay, studio.
And Frozen 4, so I will not be in Vegas.
Oh, really? You don't get to go there?
No. We'll be doing it all from the studio in Connecticut. So.
Well, you bring up keep Razor on his toes over there.
I will bug him often.
Get hurt in the game? We tough it out. Feel exhausted? We push on. Feeling down? We pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. But there are times when bootstraps aren't enough. When stress gets to us and we need to talk to someone about what we're really going through. So we're going to reach out, because sometimes mental health is not a one-person job. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
All right, back here, the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast, special edition, post-brackets, pre-regionals, and check out our bracket contests, collegehockeynews.com. Link is on the front page, so check it out there. And, win prizes, thanks to the Bucci OT shop. That's John Bucci-Cross's deal, and we thank him quite profusely. Been a great friend to College Hockey News and to college hockey, as much as we all might get on the case of ESPN here, as we're doing right now. We know a lot of people there, and I like them all, and they don't necessarily have anything to do with these decisions. So, and I even like the people who are probably making the decisions. I just disagree with them. So, because I have done work for ESPN in the past. So, yeah, I mean, we appreciate everything that they do. All right, let's get to some listener questions, a lot of listener questions, and we'll use this as a jumping off point to go on some more diatribes here along those lines. First of all, Jack has asked, in your opinion, is it better to build a program like Western Michigan where the focus is on the team aspect, often having players who peak in college as the best of the bunch, or a more Boston College, Penn State approach where the best players are big-name recruits who'll leave after a year or two? Now, we've talked about this a bazillion times, of course, over the years, and Western is certainly a good model lately. But, you mentioned Penn State in that. I mean, Penn State has not been a place where people come and go. That has not been the case until maybe now with, Gavin McKenna in there and Jackson Smith. We'll see. I mean, I would love for both of them to stay in college hockey. I think they'd both be Hobie finalists, as I said to Paul Caponigri, if they did. Boston College got to the national championship game last year with their approach. You like to think that approach could win, but, it hasn't recently. Same with Michigan a few years ago, and Minnesota for that matter, but they all came so close, right? But and Western, though, it's not like I think the key to their approach is, they definitely do get guys like who they identify and make better, and that has certainly been tremendous and not necessarily high draft picks, but they've also brought in players. I think the biggest thing that they do well is just assimilating all these guys every year, because it has changed over so much every year under Pat Ferschweiler, but every year they figure it out fast.
It kind of feels like Western kind of has that Denver blueprint, right? Where they get some high end guys, don't get me wrong, but they're not really going after that first round pick. They're going after, I don't want 3 first round picks on my roster. I want to have 12 fourth round picks or third round picks.
Yep. But Denver tends, Denver's pretty young this year, believe it or not. But they tend to recruit. They don't bring in transfers as much as Western does. So, every coach is going to have a different philosophy, slightly different approach. They all can work if you do it right, but there definitely is something to be said for having as many guys as possible stick around for as long as possible. That is definitely a thing. But like I said, BC, Michigan, Minnesota have come so close. BU last year, it's hard to say that that's not possible to win when all those teams have made championship games in the last few years.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, Jeremy asks, does Duluth have a chance to take out 2 Big Ten teams or will they be playing Penn State and Buccigross at the same time? It's funny. But, well, as we just said, Jeremy, Buccigross is not going to be broadcasting that game, so you don't have anything to worry about in that regard. The over-under on the amount of times McKenna has brought up, I mean, I don't think being a wise guy, I don't think the problem is bringing up McKenna while the game is going on. I think the problem is bringing him up so often, as if he's the only player that exists. On the selection show, again, it kind of irritated me, and we've said this like a bazillion times all year, the hype train on McKenna. I mean, it's disproportionate. And we get that it was really cool that a potential number one pick who's a major junior decided to go to college hockey. I mean, that I wrote a story at the time saying that was a drop the mic moment for college hockey. I mean, we won. But then to treat it like, we said this too, though, at the time, right? He's not the only good player in college hockey. He's not the only one that ever came along that was a good player in college hockey or a number one pick. And so it's just disproportionate hype. And they did a whole 5 minutes on him where it was nothing but, how great he was during the selection show without pointing out any of the flaws or any of the struggles that he had that were legitimate. And, a player is only better for the struggles that they went through. So you gotta acknowledge that, and we have. But it makes me look like, I'm just dumping on the kid all the time. But it's really just, again, the hype that bothers me. So I get the sentiment. But if he's talked about during the game, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, Ross asks, who would you have as the Hobie hat trick? Not who you think it will be, but who you think it should be. And we have talked about this as well. It is subject to change still, okay? I think Max Plant is definitely one. I've said all along Eric Polkamp is in there. And my other one was Trey Augustine for a while. I've been wavering a little bit. I do think TJ Hughes and Charlie Stramel have a argument for that. Other than that, I know people. Ethan Whitenbach is the nation's leading scorer, but I'm sticking with at the moment Polkamp, Max Plant, and like I said, wavering between TJ Hughes and Trey Augustine. So
okay, I like that. I would agree with you on two of them. I would go Polkamp and Plant for sure. I just think that those are easy choices. You get the best defenseman and the best forward, and then in terms of that third guy, I think you could take a couple different guys there. I think Hagens belongs in that conversation. I'm probably between Hagens and Hughes, to be honest with you, for the third forward. But I think Polkamp and Plant are easy one and twos.
If UMass would have won the Hockey East tournament, Robble would have rocketed into 3 for me.
I agree. Yeah,
but that did not happen. So and through no fault of his own, by the way.
No, I agree. And with Hagens too, the thing with Hagens is I know they lost in the hockey semis, but he had a 50-point year and had to be the go-to guy. Because remember, not only did he not have the guys to play off of that some of the other BC guys had to play off of, guys that he may have been playing with throughout the course of the year, Gasso and Yelvik, both missed giant chunks of the year. So he really was, you want to talk about a guy that had to kind of battle through being the one guy teams could key in on. It was him and Dean Letourneau. There were two guys that were scoring for BC, really. And he still found a way to do it, which impressed me.
All right, that's the questions to get to. I really appreciate it. This is good stuff, and it helps us launch into other things, even if some of the questions are being wise guys, such as this. I'm not really sure if it is being a wise guy or not, but is there evidence that starting the tournament on a Thursday afternoon has helped the sport? Well, I mean, no. But the nugget of thing in there that we can actually discuss beyond the wise guyness of it is that something we have talked about is that, the reason why they went to, split day regionals is because of that 5 overtime game a few years ago. And I've said time and again that it's ludicrous that just for that, they have now put an extra rest day in because, it feels like to me that if you were trying really hard to be a secret spy for the on-campus regional party, that this is what you would be doing. You would be sabotaging the regional format any way you can. And if you really want to screw up atmospheres and you really want to screw up attendance, then put games on Thursday afternoon. Put teams that have no relationship to the area there. I mean, look, I'm agreeing with the sentiment, even though the guy's being a wise guy. It has not helped the sport.
The one thing, too, I think is interesting, like, from what we've been told, you and I both, the feeling about the home site regionals and the neutral site regionals, both sides are dug in. Like, there's not a lot of people in the middle that are like, I can go either way with it. And I'm talking about coaches. I'm not talking about fans. I'm talking about coaches. There's coaches who absolutely want to go to on-campus regionals. Just ask David Carl. And there are coaches and other people in the sport like Steve Metcalf who absolutely want to keep the neutral site regionals. They're very dug in on each side. No one's really in the middle. I got to wonder, like, if I'm David Carl right now, I'm looking at that Sioux Falls regional going, hey, maybe this may get some of the Eastern coaches that want to keep the.
I'm pretty sure he said that on the selection show today.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even catch that part.
Oh, he threw in that little bomb at the end of his.
I see. Oh, that's funny. I didn't even catch that. But I was like, if I'm him, I'm looking at this going, hey, you 3 Eastern teams got to go to Sioux Falls. Well, what do you think of my opinion now?
That's why I'm saying, like,
as soon as they announced the Merrimack bracket, I was trying to get interviews done and get stories done. So I didn't even catch that. That's funny.
That's why I'm saying, if I didn't know any better, I would say that the committee was intentionally trying to sabotage their own tournament and make the on-campus regional format look even better. So, we'll get to more of that here because it's all coming. Let me just get some of these other questions out of the way quickly before we get to that.
Let's do it. Yeah,
Bet on UMD asked us if U Sports players coming to play NCAA will keep happening. It didn't work out this year that well for Omaha. Is that a pipeline or a trend? Will it be short-lived as more CHL players enter? I think the U Sports is still going to happen. Just as much as the major junior. I mean, it's just another avenue. Did it work out for Omaha? I mean, you got to remember, everything sort of happened quickly last summer. So, a lot of teams were just kind of scrambling to find as players to fill holes.
The other thing too is I think a lot of those guys probably would have just gone to college out of the CHL. So I think it'll still be a thing because there will still be some guys that end up going that route and taking that route. But I don't think it's going to be as many because I think a lot of the guys that did this year, when they age out of the CHL, may just go to college right away. They're not going to necessarily go to University of New Brunswick first and then transfer. And you're right, like the emailer is right that it didn't really work out for Omaha, but it did for some other schools. Like Providence has a couple of U Sport players on their roster, former U Sport players on their roster who played really well. I think Lowell does as well. So they weren't as loaded with them as Omaha was, but it's not like all those guys struggled. Some of them came in and made big impacts. So I do think it could continue to happen, just like you can find late bloomers anywhere, right? Like coaches find late bloomers out of the USHL or the North American League. It'll be more the CHL now all the time. Like, who's to say that a kid isn't really recruited when he's 19 out of the CHL? He goes to school for a couple of years, and then he's the leading scorer in U Sport as a sophomore. He's probably going to get some Division I offers.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, the only other non-bracket question here is someone asking about Joey Muldowney. Paul asked, was he totally healthy? He says it didn't look right to him, but you were there, so I don't know if you noticed anything.
I didn't notice anything. I thought he played real hard. He was just kind of a bulldog the whole game. I mean, he had his nose and everything. He didn't, but at the same time, like, he didn't look as dynamic as he looked a year ago. I don't know. My guess is at this time of year, nobody's completely healthy, and maybe it affected his play. But like I thought, you can't deny his effort. I mean, he was getting his nose dirty at every possibility.
All right. This is our, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, all similar in nature.
What could this be on?
So I'm just going to rattle off all of the questions, some of them more obnoxious than others, but Carl was saying, now that I see a lot of East Coasters whining about heading west for the tournament, will this speed up the conversation on home regionals? I mean, the mistake.
You mean the person asking the question is named Carl?
Exactly.
It's not someone with the first name David and last name.
Good point. It could be his burner. I don't know. But look, I mean, people love to be trolls on the internet. Nobody's whining, okay? Everyone is just, Nate Lehman certainly wasn't whining about going on. They were just mentioning, and people can't just have differences of opinion without accusing everyone of the worst possible mindset. So no one's whining. The way I come at it is to try to make things better. But let me just run down these other ones. Shipping 3 teams from the Northeast out to a home site for North Dakota makes no sense. Why did the committee do this? Somebody else wrote, why do I love college hockey when college hockey doesn't love itself? Another question from Z Young.
Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm just really tired, but that one tickled me. When college hockey doesn't love itself. Okay.
Yeah. Z Young asks, why not shuffle the seeds within the bands to create more unique matchups? DU Cornell again, Western Minnesota State again, for example. Dude, you are preaching to the converted. I am all for that. I have said this forever, too. I have no problem. Sometimes, you see it in basketball all the time. You'll see a matchup that you're like, there's no way that was by chance. And I would have no problem with it. The difference between hockey and basketball is everybody in hockey knows what the order of the teams are according to the MPI and knows that that's what they start out by. And in basketball, there is no transparency to that. There is some numbers out there, but they're not beholden to them, and they don't ever formally announce the order that they're working off of. So they can do whatever the hell they want. And for better or worse. And like I said, from picking the teams, I think it's worse. For doing what you want within the regional, I have no problem with it. But let me get to these other ones. Sorry. Paul asks, any theories on what blackmail material North Dakota has in the selection committee to both be playing close to home and have a cakewalk into the semis? As we talked about earlier, I don't believe it's cakewalk, and I've got Providence coming out of that regional. So, and then last but not least, what in the world was ESPN thinking for game time? So there you go. I mean, we touched on that as well. But now let's just get into all of this in our last few minutes here. The committee could have done other things. Should they have, I guess, is the question. And what does this mean?
So it's funny, what it means, I guess I'll start there. What it means is nothing has changed. I thought coming into this that, well, first of all, we had the bracket prediction exactly as it was. Why? Because it's very predictable. You can kind of gauge what they're going to do based on what they've done in the past. People play games all the time. I have people ask me, are they going to separate Western Michigan and Denver? And I'm like, well, no, I don't think they are. And people are like, well, why wouldn't you do that? And I'm going, well, look, I didn't say I wouldn't. I'm saying I don't think they will. There's two different things. Should they or will they? They didn't. And I didn't think they were going to. There's so many things that we can talk about every year, and every year it kind of goes the same way. They take the 1 through 16 order, they break up any interconference matchups in the first round, and that's about it. And they kind of keep it strict to that 1 to 16 order. If it means that UConn ends up in Worcester and gets a relative home game against Michigan State, then that's what it means. They don't really seem to deviate from that. I wondered this year if they were going to, with all of the noise about on-campus regionals, and there's a strong push there. I mean, I said, the people we talk to, it's like 50-50. It's not like it's a vocal minority. It's about a 50-50 split between Western coaches and Eastern coaches for the most part. It's kind of split along geographical lines for the most part. And it's, I wondered, because the NCAA doesn't seem to want to go that route. The reason why I don't think they want to go that route is they're bidding out another round of regionals right now.
Exactly.
We talked about it a month ago. UNH, I was told, did not bid to host in Manchester in the next cycle. So they're in the middle of bidding out more neutral sites right now, which says to me the NCAA wants to keep the neutral site regional format, at least for the next probably 4 years, because they're probably going to announce a 4-year cycle of regionals when they do announce them. So with all that being said, I wondered, okay, are they going to do things to try to quiet the argument of the on-campus regional people, right? Are they going to do things to prioritize attendance and to prioritize atmosphere? And the answer is no. They didn't do anything. And they absolutely could have. That's the thing. Some common sense things you absolutely could have done to create better attendance, to create better atmosphere, whether that's moving the Providence Quinnipiac game to Albany instead of Minnesota Duluth and Penn State. I mean, I had people today going wait a minute, why is, Merrimack and UConn are technically back-to-back, 14-15, even though Merrimack's lower than the 15 overall seed. They're like, why wouldn't you take the school that just filled more than half of the Garden last night and won the game? Why wouldn't they go to Worcester, and why wouldn't UConn go to Sioux Falls? And I kept telling people, because that's not what they do. It's just not. Yes, it might make some sense. I get it. Like, logically, that might make some sense, but it's not what they're going to do because it's never what they've done before. Should they do that? I don't know. That might make a little bit of sense to me. Just like making the Providence-Quinnipiac game in Albany makes a little bit of sense to me, and putting Duluth and Penn State in Sioux Falls. Like, there's things they could have done. It does start to feel like, as you said, that they're almost sabotaging their own format here.
Yeah.
And on top of it all, first game's at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Like, what are we doing? And people are going to be shocked when there's nobody in the building.
Nobody. And there won't be anybody in Loveland either at 12:30 on a Friday for Western Michigan versus Minnesota State.
Nope, there's not. And that's the thing where I get, like, we want to grow the game. My issue with on-campus regionals is I want to be told by ESPN what their plan would be for that before we even start that conversation. Because if ESPN goes, we don't make money on this as it is, hard pass, we're not sending 8 crews out to cover these things, then you can't do it, because not getting games on either streaming or television grows the game. I said this last year, I'm going to say it again. There's a chunk of these games that are already on ESPN Plus as it is.
Right.
Why are we starting games at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday? And then we're going to sit here and again look at, the atmosphere was terrible. Well, there's no reason why you can't put all these games in prime time. Are they going to go?
Why can't they be at the same time? I said this last year. Like, we're the only psychos who watch every game. Like, I don't need to have I'm used to watching 6 games at once every weekend. I mean, right? They don't have to be staggered. Who's watching all the games? I mean, it's really for the people who are fans of the teams.
What I would honestly, from a television standpoint, I think I said this last year. I know they get some time on ESPN2 and ESPNU. I would be absolutely fine with them saying, you know what? All of the games are streaming in full on the ESPN app, on whatever, Roku, Apple TV, your phone, whatever. You want to watch a game in full, you can stream them there. On ESPN2, because that's the most prominent network that they're going to put these things on, you have a block, whatever it is. It looks like they get 2 games on ESPN2 on Friday, right? Or no, on Thursday, it looks like. So at 1:30 and 8:30, carve out a chunk on ESPN2 from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. or midnight or whatever, and do essentially a red zone show or whatever they called it when they did it with the NHL, and you could bounce in and out. Mm-hmm. Like, put somebody in the studio, and if the game's an intermission, you don't have to go to that game. If North Dakota's on a power play late and they're in a 2-2 game against Merrimack, hey, we're going to go out to Sioux Falls because that game is tied late. And then if that ends up if somebody takes a lead and ends up being 4-2, and we're going to cut out of there and we're going to go to, if all these games are happening at once, we're going to cut out of there and we're going to go over to Worcester because Michigan State and UConn are entering the third period. You could bounce it around a little bit and actually create something that, as I've said before, like the way younger people that's how younger people watch TV. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old who are hockey players, and unless it's a team that they follow, unless it's the Boston Bruins or Merrimack College, because those are the 2 games they go to all the time, it's very hard for them to sit down and watch a full game on TV in its entirety without pulling up their phone. But when they do that Frozen Frenzy thing on ESPN that John Buccigross hosts and with studio, and it's a whip around show, they're glued to that thing for 4 hours because that's how they watch TV. That's how they watch their phone. It's constant 30-second clips on Instagram or TikTok. Like, that's how they consume media. So I would be fine with that. I know that's asking a lot because that's a real deviation from what they do now. But I think that is better than playing games at 1:30 on a Thursday and 12:30 on a Friday.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you got 5 minutes because I'm going to need 5.
Okay. Yeah. I took all of my 5. I yield the rest of my time to you.
The thing is, like, I've typically, like, again, people always like to think that what I say is black and white and project their own stuff onto things that I write or say or whatever. Over the course of time, I have defended the committee more often than not. From, silly arguments, okay? And I understand why they do what they do, and it's made up of good people. We know a lot of them, and it rotates, so it's not always the same people. What's happened over the years is they have gotten more and more rigid. Like, it feels like they are afraid, and it's been baked in institutionally now gradually over the years to the point, like, to this year is like the height of absurdity in terms of the rigidness of what they've done. And, like you said, why can we predict what's the bracket's going to look like? Because we've seen, like, everyone seems to be stuck on 10 years ago when, like, there was all this stuff out there, like, oh, we got to change it around for, attendance purposes, and we did this, that, and the other thing. And there was criticisms then for doing that, right? And sometimes they were valid and sometimes they weren't. So, again, it's all a balance. Like, I have no problem with them moving things around when it makes sense, and I do have a problem if they move things around and it doesn't make sense. So, you have to find the balance. But it feels like over the last few years, more and more, they've gotten afraid of doing anything and hiding behind the fact that they can justify it by saying, well, this is the way the MPI came out. It's 1 through 16, and that's what they did. Well, okay. The downside of that is you're sabotaging your own tournament. So, pick your poison. And I want to see them step up and have the guts, as it were, to make tweaks. And, it's funny because I'll argue both sides. I'll argue against people who, say, like, oh, this conspiracy theory or that conspiracy theory, and they hate my team. Look, none of that is true. Nobody is doing anything on purpose to hurt anybody. The committee is made up of 6 coaches from across the country and athletic directors, and they try to do as good a job as they can. On the flip side, I'll argue with people who say, well, this is the way that the MPI came out. This is what the teams, quote unquote, earned, and this is how they should be bracketed. And people said that, called me an idiot all week for suggesting that Michigan State should have to go to Loveland and then Western, because I wanted to avoid that second round matchup. And look, I'm not screwing Michigan State by changing one position in the NPI. And it's nonsensical. And it's the same argument. The funny thing is, it's the same argument, actually, if you pick it apart, about on-campus regionals. Because what do I always say about why I don't want these on campus? And it's not because of atmosphere. The atmosphere would be great. I'm not going to deny it. But the numbers are not good enough to say that this is the order, like in gospel, 1 through 16. Now, again, then someone will inevitably say, well, but you're picking the teams. That yes, of course, because like we've said, there's no other good option. But once you have the 16, okay, there is nothing wrong with flipping things around a spot or two here and there to make logical sense. So getting to this year, and to answer all these questions, right, there is zero reason why Providence and Quinnipiac could not be playing in Albany, hour-and-a-half drive or whatever the heck it is, while Penn State and Duluth play in Sioux Falls. Just no reason. Now, and someone will say, oh, well, now you're screwing Michigan because now they're in the bracket with the 7 seed instead of the 8 seed. Who freaking cares? Like, do you know how little separates those two teams? It's ridiculous. And going back to the things we've said before about the dials, I mean, at the end of the day, it is an algorithm that you can plug into a computer and spits it out. But the inputs that go into it, the weightings, are extremely arbitrary. Okay? There's not an absolute science behind the fact that we have 80, 0.8 and 1.2 as your home road weighting, or that you have 0.5 as your quality win bonus measurement. I mean, there's nothing behind that other than, well, this makes sense. And that's no offense to Tim, who does a great job with coming up with the MPI. It's just the fact is, like, these are the committee decisions that go into, like, what we're going to weight it as. And you make one little tweak, and it's, 0.005 difference, and now all of a sudden Providence is 8 and Duluth is 7. So what are we even talking about? So the idea that you can't change it around because you're ruining bracket integrity just really cracks me up. I mean, what the heck is bracket integrity? You know, the integrity of the bracket should be doing something logical. And I've even said, in fun ways. Okay, like, let's say, just pulling that out of a hat. Let's say St. Cloud and Minnesota were in the same, lined up not to play each other. But, Bob Motz goes old school and blah, blah, blah. Let's have them play each other. That would be fun. Like, if it's a 2-3 and it lines up. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have to go out of your way to make little things like that, I am 100% in favor of that. If you have to tweak something to make sure that, maybe Denver and Western won't play in the second round, absolutely 100% in favor of that. If you have to tweak it so that attendance matters, 100% in favor. Now, am I in favor of a 4 seed? Like you said before, Merrimack, I would not be in favor of Merrimack getting, that treatment to go to Worcester. In that case, even though that might help attendance, they're a 4 seed. I don't think they should get that benefit. Let them go to Sioux Falls for all I care. Right?
No, my only point with that is
I'm just using that as an example.
It's 2 Eastern teams. Like you're flipping 2 Eastern teams. I wouldn't do it if there was. I wouldn't give a team a home game that over a Western team. You know what I mean? I'm looking at it. Okay, you have 2 Eastern teams. One has to go somewhere. One has to go there. One has to go the other. No matter what, Michigan State is playing a team that is going to be closer to that regional than they are.
Right. And for the same reason, though, that, people don't want there to be unfairness when you flip it around is the same reason why I don't want there to be unfairness by playing on campus. And then, again, people will say, oh, well, they earned it. I hate that for it. I really do. I hate the fact that if we just admit that no one earned anything. You just want a better atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, again, the order does mean something, but it doesn't mean that much. Make the tournament as good as it can be. And this year, the committee, it was like, it was either there was an infiltrator from the on-campus people who came in and said, let's make this look really bad. Or it was like, look, all you people staying on campus, screw you. We're going to do the exact opposite just to shove it in your face. Like, you thought that was bad? Hold my beer. Let's do this. And again, like they're going, if we are having this conversation with them right now, they would say, no, we just went by the way it is. Bracket integrity. Now we just lined it up. And every year when I talk to the committee, I didn't even do it this year for the first time in probably 15 years because I know they was going to say like the same thing he said last year. Mm-hmm. That's the way it lined up. I'm like, well, that's not a good enough answer anymore. You're trying to make the tournament as best it can be within this neutral site format, and they're not doing that. There's like 6-7 things that can be done every year to make it the best it can be. And so, like I said, I do not think it's intentional, all kidding aside, right? I do think that they are doing their best. They are great people, but they're misguided in the approach right now. There's no creativity, there's no ingenuity, and they're afraid to deviate. And like I said, if they made these decisions, if they flipped 7-10 and 8-9, and someone complained that now 2 and 8, or I would defend them till the cows come home. So I think that's enough for now. And we mentioned enough about the TV times that really at this point. So.
That's the one that gets me the most.
Yeah. Well, we touched on it enough in the course of this hour and a half, so I got nothing more to say on that other than that's part of the sabotage, really. And again, it's almost like these things didn't happen, obviously, to intentionally sabotage it, but it's like one thing after another over the years. The more rigidness, the ESPN stuff, that going to the split day regionals. I mean, it's just one thing after another to make it worse, and instead of making it better, which is what it needs to do. So, I mean, me and David Carl are on the same page in terms of needing to make things better, right? 100%. Where are the people out there, pushing to make the tournament better? That's the problem. So all you people out there yell at me for, think I'm a clown or whatever else I'm called names on all week. I'm closer to you than some other people are in trying to make it better out there. I think, all right, pound the gavel. We're done. Closing argument. Man, I'm tired. I'm really tired. Well,
I had a second win there.
And here's the thing, I don't. Yeah, right. I will pivot. And look, I usually get all this out of my system on Sunday and early Monday. And by Tuesday, I am ready to enjoy the hockey games. You know what I mean? And that's almost like, it's almost like good and bad. It's like they know they're going to suck me back in because I love watching hockey and I love the games. So I don't care if there's 5 people there. You know, I've said that before, right? About, you know, I love hockey no matter what. I used to bother me. Like I used to think, well, I want hockey to be more popular. And I used to, and I got to the point where, you know, whatever, I know what I like. And I say that in relation to like the Stanley Cup, for example. Like, oh, Florida's playing Edmonton. No one's going to watch that thing. I don't care. I'm watching it. It was awesome. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? I don't care. Like if no one shows up to watch Duluth versus Penn State, I'll be riveted. You know what I mean? I don't give a rat's patootie. But for the sake of atmosphere and helping the tournament, these things, you know, do need to happen. So, all right. Anything else?
I don't think so.
I need a nap.
Yeah, me too.
2-day nap, actually. All right, listen. Check out collegehockeynews.com. We will pivot to the games. All the articles, brackets, bracket contests. Check it all out online. Schedules, times. They haven't even announced Saturday and Sunday times yet, by the way. Oh, I didn't even get into that. It's the first time I could ever remember they have not yet announced times for the Saturday-Sunday regional finals.
Awesome.
This point. Now, how is anyone supposed to know or buy a ticket for those? They don't know when it is.
I didn't even know that.
You know, I looked everywhere at the ESPN, the official site for the NCAA. Nothing. No, the press releases we've gotten. Nothing's happened. It's the first time I can ever remember there not being times at this point for Saturday, Sunday.
That's insane. Like, what are we doing?
All right. On that note, we were about to close up shop here.
Who's running this ship? Yeah.
I know who is. You know, we know who is. But I love these guys, really. But let's chat, please. All right. Onward. Enjoy. See you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast. To submit your listener questions, please send them to @CHN News on X. And for the best college hockey content around, including features, the CHN Team of the Week, stats, rankings, and so much more, visit us at collegehockeynews.com. Until next time, we hope you enjoy all of this week's great on-ice action, and we'll be back to break it down on our next edition. For Adam Woden and Mike McMahon, this has been the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast.